This is a Lexus UX250h, a small hybrid crossover and the entryway into the Lexus brand. Now, I say crossover because Lexus calls it a crossover, but the government calls it a compact car, and if you ask me, I would actually call it a hatchback. This particular Lexus UX is an F Sport and painted in atomic silver. There are 3 trims of Lexus UX: the base, this F Sport, and luxury. You can also instead get the front-wheel drive, non-hybrid Lexus 200. However, for the 2023 model year, the UX is getting a mid-cycle update and will be hybrid only. According to Lexus, that update will include additional spot welds to the structure itself to make it just a little bit stronger, some tuning changes, new tech, and some other bits and bobs. And that's exactly why I wanted to get into this 2022 model, so I'd have a good sense of what changed when I get the chance to drive the 2023. Hi everybody, my name is Robin Warner. I am an experienced engineer and magazine editor, and I like hatchbacks. I review all kinds of cars, from a $25,000 Ford Maverick to a $425,000 Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I'll happily jump into Honda Accords, BMW M3s, and Porsche 911 GT3s. And I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for a Lexus UX, and indeed, I guess the Lexus brand, is $36,900. The F Sport trim starts at $39,240, and my test car had a lot of options on it and cost $46,640. I will point out some of the individual options throughout this video, but as you can see, I've got a list on the screen right now just so you can get a general sense of what it is, because it is indeed a lot, and a lot of them are accessories. All right, taking a closer look at this 2022 Lexus UX250h, and you can see that it's actually not that big or not that tall. But looking at it from the front, you can see that, relatively speaking, this is a very, very big front grille. Large and in charge, you could say. And this is specific, this front bumper, to the F Sport trim UX250h. I do have to say that it generally looks fine to me, and I like the design of the headlights, but this is a lot. With the car in profile, there are a couple little things to see. You've got an F Sport badge right here on the front quarter panel and a hybrid badge down here on the rear door. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions on the screen so you can see wheelbase, width, length, and height. You can see it's actually not that big. Kind of gets to that hatchback thing I'm talking about. These are $1,300 optional 18-inch wheels with a gloss black finish. If you prefer, you can get a matte black finish 18-inch wheels. Those are also $1,300. Regardless of what you choose, however, you get 18-inch wheels. Now, this is an awfully busy rear end, if I'm honest, but that's not necessarily a bad thing once you see all the things that are going on. I think it's pretty cool that we've got these like steps built into the tail lights and this little like winglet right here. So that gives this taillight system, which kind of goes all the way across the back of the tailgate here, kind of a dual purpose in terms of obviously taillights, turn signals, etc., but also almost this like faux rear wing kind of shape, which I think is fun. You do also have a little roof mounted spoiler right here, which I'm sure creates thousands of pounds of downforce. And you've got this plastic right here, followed by this polished metal just beneath that. There's just a lot going on. Not bad, just a bit busy. One thing I do definitely appreciate is you have one exhaust outlet. It is down there, and it is 100% real. Nothing faux, nothing fancy, just as it should be. And since we are back here, I might as well go ahead and show you the power opening tailgate with kick sensor. It is a $600 option, and the kick sensor is right here. And with the tailgate open, you can see there's actually not that much space back here. You know, we've got this heavily raked tailgate here, so the back of the headrest is only about 8 inches, maybe 10 inches from the opening of the top of the tailgate. but it does add up to 17 cubic feet of space if you look at it like that. And if you remove this carpeted floor mat, you have more space beneath, and that increases your total space to over 21 cubic feet. And if you need more than 21 cubic feet, you can fold the second row seats down, easy enough to do. And now you have more than 21 cubic feet of space and room for two. All right, let's check out the inside. This is a small car. I have to say this again because, as you can see, I have the front seats set up to be comfortable for me, and you can already tell that that's not a lot of space back here for full-size adults. But here we go. So sitting in here is actually not all that bad. I have, you know, maybe an inch in knee room, and my knees are bent right around 90 degrees. The seat bottom is a little bit higher than I expected getting into this car, so thigh support isn't all that bad. And I do have about an inch of headroom as well, and that's despite having the moonroof up front there. Rear passengers also have a couple of USB ports to use and some cup holders. Hey, hey, hey. All right, to the front. For the front passengers, I think this is a plenty comfortable place to be. And the interior looks nice. The red on black, I think, is a nice contrast from each other. And you have the typical controls here and there. You do have power seat support, and that does include lumbar right there. These are F-Sport exclusive seats, and they are a little bit more supportive than your standard UX250 seats. And I appreciate that for sure. The steering wheel itself is a nice fat rim, and it has an F-Sport logo down there and a lot of controls on either side. And the instrument cluster is digital, and it's actually fancy and digital. This is also for the F-Sport. This originated in the LFA, and you also see it on the Lexus LC. But that's a physical metal dial right there, and it actually shifts to and fro to give you different information. And you can see the boundaries of it right here with the car off. And when I start the car, I'll show you that real quick though. I want to say that this does have a $500 color heads-up display, and that the steering wheel is heated, which is a $150 option. Okay, push button start. So it goes through its little display and puts on the gate, but check that out, see? So this moves off to the side and exposes this information right here. And through this little control system right here, you actually have a lot of displays to work with here. Drive information, and you can scroll up and down through there. But then you also have compass, music, road information. This is for the driving assist stuff, messages, and settings. And look at all these options you have for settings. So you can turn a lot of the driver's aids on and off right here. So that's all done right here with these controls on the wheel. And if you just want to keep this dial in the center, press this button here, and there it goes. Because we have the $2,200 navigation package, we have the 10.3-inch center console screen right here. A 7-inch screen is standard. This system does connect with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It is wired. You do get dual zone climate control, and beneath that we do have the heated seats, the heated steering wheel I already showed you, and we do also have a wireless smartphone charger right there. That is an optional extra as well. Couple of cup holders, pretty standard looking Prindle right there. These are the controls for the center console screen. This is nice right here. You have additional buttons for media, and beneath all that, some additional storage and some additional USB and auxiliary ports. But if you just want to charge, you can do that with this old school cigarette plug style right there. Your electric parking brake is hidden down there, but I think that's a nice place for it. And if we keep looking up, here's a closer look at the controls for your moonroof, which does have a manual privacy panel right there. We do have drive modes in the UX250, and I think they're in a really cool spot. And I'm glad that we only have 3. We have normal, sport, and eco modes. The dial right here, turn up for sport, turn down for eco, press the button for normal. Sport speeds up the throttle map and gives you less steering assistance or a heavier steering wheel. Eco mode slows the throttle map down and actually limits the amount of AC you get, and normal is normal. On this side, this is traction control and stability control on off. This dial is not a dial, it's just this button here. Press it to turn off traction control, press it and hold it down to turn off traction and stability control. And, wouldn't you know, I actually do that a little bit later on, but first, let's get back to the drive. Okay, let's dig into this powertrain because it is actually super interesting. Total system horsepower is 181, which is not a ton, but it is completely adequate for the job. However, there is an internal combustion engine and 3 electric motors that all work together to produce that. The core and indeed most of the power comes from a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder engine that runs on the Atkinson cycle and makes 169 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. And then 2 motors are up front with the gasoline engine to help produce a total of 175 horsepower up front and do all the fun hybrid tricks that hybrids do. Depending on conditions, the electric motors can power the UX up to 71 miles an hour without the engine running. Though, once you get closer to 70 miles an hour, you're probably going to be going downhill with the engine shut off. The third motor is mounted at the rear axle and makes a total of 7 horsepower and is what makes the UX all-wheel drive. It is a drive shaft free all-wheel drive system. 7 horsepower isn't a lot, but it is more torque than that, I'm sure. And adding the third motor, that's how you get to the total system horsepower of 181. Now, that motor in back only powers the rear axle up to 45 miles an hour. So it's really good for lower speed, additional traction, especially in inclement weather, snow, whatever, and it will help with off-the-line acceleration. But 46 miles an hour and up, this is a front-wheel drive car, hatchback, crossover, whatever. The transmission on its own is super interesting. It is an eCVT, and it's basically non-existent. What it is in real life is the combination of those electric motors and clutches working with this engine to keep this UX going. Ironically enough, you do have paddle shifters and you do have up to 10 speeds to use with these paddle shifters. These are theoretical speeds. Their main purpose actually is to help with engine braking. If you're cruising along and you want to slow down without using the brakes, you just hit the negative paddle shifter here, and now I'm at D4, D3, D2, and you can hear the engine speeding up. So those are the clutch packs and everything working to speed up the engine and give you engine braking when you lift off the gas. And then once you start moving again, you can use the positive to get it back to drive and it'll continue on its merry way. Or you can put the transmission in sport mode and you can still do the downshifting just like I was doing before, but you can also do upshifting as well to give you a little bit more control of the type of acceleration you're going to get from the car. But bear in mind, they are not real gears. This is not an actual transmission. There's not a CVT under here or anything like that. It is a very complicated system that uses the 2 electric motors and clutches and all kinds of stuff that make all this happen. It's possible, if any Toyota engineers are listening, that I got the details wrong. For that, I apologize. But generally speaking, just know that it works well, it has these options, and functions quite normally, even though it's not a traditional transmission that we're dealing with. Like I said, super interesting stuff here. I think it's just a really interesting combination of all these different tricks, hybrid, paddle shifters, all that kind of stuff, and yet in a pretty small package with a pretty darn big wheelbase, relatively light, and in what effectively is a hatchback. Critically, the engine is generally quiet, smooth operating, and gives adequate acceleration whenever you need it. I wouldn't say it's fast, but it's not slow. And again, it's smooth, quiet, and also quite efficient. In fact, with all the hybrid fun, you get 41 miles to the gallon in the city, 38 miles to the gallon on the highway, 39 combined. But even though this isn't a rocket ship, I'll tell you what's way more fun than getting good fuel economy, that's accelerating, and I did a test. Let me show you that now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test. I have the transmission in sport mode, I have the traction control off, and I have the car in sport driving mode. Let's see how it goes. Come to a complete stop, bit of brake torque, and off we go. So yeah, brake torque didn't do anything at all. It just kind of held us there until we got going. And now we're getting the engine up and moving. This isn't impressive acceleration, but it's reasonable enough. The engine's spinning right around 6,000 RPM and we're moving along just fine. Yeah, you know, it's quick. it's certainly suitable for what this car is, which is a small, lightweight crossover SUV, really a hatchback. So the acceleration isn't impressive, but it certainly isn't bad, meets my expectations. Obviously, this is not a straight line car. It's not a drag car, but it is actually, you could argue, kind of a handling car, a warm hatch, maybe. And specifically because this is an F-Sport, that plays a role. The F-Sport does get its own suspension tuning, and it does get stiffer springs and bigger anti-roll bars as well. In fact, the wheels themselves, those 18-inch wheels I showed you, are more rigid on the F-Sport. All of that plays to help crisp up the handling, make turn-in response a little bit sharper, and just make this car generally more lively going through corners. And of course, I had to test it. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a handling test. I do have the transmission in sport mode, I have the car in sport mode, drive mode, sport mode, and I have the traction control and stability control off. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, we're getting up and moving all right, not bad there. I have to say, better body control than I expected, and more grip too. Yeah, you know, that's decent grip and really pretty decent body control as well. And the front end is sharper than I expected. Now, the feel from the front end is pretty absent. I don't feel much of anything out of the front end, and the steering's pretty much lifeless. But the body control is really good, and the body is sending good signals of what the car is up to. So in that sense, it's pretty good. It's definitely worth going around again. Yeah, really pretty decent body control in these uneven patches of pavement. Better than I expected, truly. Yeah, I mean, you can throw this into a corner pretty fast, and it holds a pretty even keel through the corner. You don't have tons of grip, but you have more than I expected. Okay, I have to say, pleasantly surprised here. This behaves much more like, not hot, but let's say pretty warm hatch. And that's basically what this is, a tallish hatchback. This has a pretty fast reacting front end, decent grip, and really much better body control than I expected. Now, steering feel is pretty much non-existent, and that is a noticeable absence for hot hatch category cars. But this was more fun to throw around some corners than I expected. Honestly, it could be a lot worse than this. This was fun. So that, of course, brings us to the other half of vehicle dynamics, and that is the ride. And now we have those stiffer springs and different tuning playing against us just the tiniest little bit, but really not much. Maybe it's a little bit stiffer than the base or luxury versions, and yeah, it's stiffer than some purely comfort-oriented vehicles out there, but I find the ride perfectly pleasant, not at all harsh, and still handles bumps and heaves of the road just fine. And that's true on roads like this or on the interstate. Did a test there as well. Let me show you that. Time for a jaunt on the interstate, everybody. See how this little crossover SUV from Lexus handles it. I do have the car back in normal driving mode, normal transmission, and all that kind of fun stuff. Traction control and stability control is back on. We do have a nice plethora of safety systems. I believe this one is Toyota Safety Sense 2.0 Plus, but I'll put it on the screen as well as the list of things that come with the system. And if I happen to get the name a little bit wrong, I'll have the corrected name up there. Of course, that includes adaptive cruise control and plenty other things, so we'll give that a go as well. Okay, cruise control is set. We're going with traffic right around 78 miles an hour. The adaptive cruise control, we've got someone right in front of us now that's going a bit slower, and the adaptive cruise control is subtly slowing us down, keeping it nice and pleasant, nothing jerky or abrupt about it. And we do have it in the shortest distance right now. We do also have some lane keeping assist here, some lane centering technology. So I'll go ahead and take my hands off the wheel, see how it goes. Yeah, you can see the steering wheel moving around a little bit, but yeah, again, Toyota Lexus stuff tends to be really good at keeping you in the center of the lane. So we're doing that right now. We're coming up on a subtle curve right now. And yep, it's following the curve really well, although it's also telling me to put my hands back on the wheel. Toyota/Lexus calls it lane tracing assist, and it works really well. More fundamentally, wind noise is nicely isolated from this car. On the flip side, road noise is a touch louder than I expected, so overall, noise is right around where I expected. And again, 38 miles to the gallon on the interstate isn't award-winning these days, but it's a healthy number, so this will be nice and frugal on the interstate as well. The seats are comfortable, the center console screen is easy to read, all the switchgear is easy to reach and use, so I think this would be a very pleasant car to have on the interstate. Great little road trip car. Put it all together, and what do we have in this Lexus UX? We have what I think is a really interesting entry point into the Lexus brand. A changing Lexus brand, it must be said. Lexus is still trying to have legitimate and significant luxury chops, but play a little bit more into the performance category as well. And as an entry point into this Lexus brand, this also gives you a little bit of an entry point to the performance side of the Lexus brand. And I have to say, I think it does a reasonable job. This genuinely pleasantly surprised me going through corners when I did my handling test. And yet, it still feels plenty comfortable to me. I like the 10.3-inch center console screen, plenty of USB charge ports, the seats are nice and comfortable, plenty supportive. I like the soft touch materials, I like the leather. I think they did a good job with the stitching and the controls, and of course it is dual zone climate control, heated seats, heated steering wheel, etc., etc., etc. To start edging towards 50 grand for a car with this much performance in terms of engine, that kind of stuff, that's a little bit tough. And the styling, well, it's not for everybody, but as far as dynamics are concerned, luxury is concerned, and truthfully, features are concerned, I think this is a great entry point into the Lexus brand, and icing on the cake, it's quite efficient as well. I'm Robin Warner, thank you for watching. And if you are still watching, I would really appreciate it if you like this video. Doing that helps me out quite a lot. Okay, goodbye. Why not? Let's throw the transmission in sport. Hey, hey, hey! Not bad! You know, it's not bad.